Hey everyone, welcome to another Sounds Profitable Product Deep Dive. I'm really excited for this one because we're introducing Jeremy Sunny of Decibel, a product that I've had a chance to take a look at for probably about the last 6 to 12 months, but you're going to be able to see for the first time here and learn more about how it can work best for you. So first, Jeremy, welcome to the Deep Dive series.
I appreciate you having me.
So can you tell us a little bit about Decibel? Because I think that, I've had a chance to check it out, but it might be new for a lot of people in podcasting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'll tell you a little bit of the background story. So,
Please.
I've been in advertising, specifically media buying, for about 12 years now, right? Most of that time I was focused on Facebook ads, Google ads, really like performance kind of brands focused, right? Last couple of years before I started Decibel, I started to get into the larger programmatic world, utilizing like big DSPs to buy things like connected TV and audio. Started noticing that audio was working really well, but it wasn't kind of as mature as a lot of the other parts of the ecosystem. There's a lot of things you had to do manually, things like that, at least on the programmatic side. And so I said, this is a really valuable tool for performance advertisers to be able to expand into new channels, especially as like iOS updates and increased privacy with GDPR, CCPA, things like that. Have kind of diminished some of the performance of platforms that they've been using otherwise and relying on heavily. And so I said, let's go and let's make a tool that makes buying audio ads more like buying a Facebook ad or a Google ad. And that was really kind of the goal. And we've been working on this for a little over 2 years at this point. Been growing really rapidly, 10x growth from 2021 to 2022, and are on pace to 20x that growth in 2023. So really exciting times for sure. But at its core, Decibel is an audio ads buying platform, a DSP, if you want to think about it that way. But it's fully self-serve. There's no minimum spend, and it's really geared towards those audience-based buys and performance marketers that, that's my background that I came from. And we've seen a lot of great adoption from that crowd as well, which is not like who I think traditionally has been the buyer of programmatic audio up to this point.
I'll agree with that. I think that performance marketing and DTC brands have been a big part of podcasting, but a lot of that's focused on the host endorsement. And that's really strong. But Tom and I at Sounds Profitable did a study that found that the difference between that host endorsement and like a scripted announcer read, if done well, is maybe a 7% difference in listener acceptance. So there's an immense amount of value for performance marketing and tools that will make that work. We started with promo codes and vanity URLs in podcasting, and it worked. That's how the industry started growing. And then the tools that allowed us to do attribution and move further into programmatic with dynamic ad insertion and whatnot had to be as good or better than those solutions that we had, which were, the advertiser reports back, where did you hear about it? So the industry has advanced. But this thing that you're harping on here, which is really powerful, the replacement of, the performance ads on Facebook, on other social media avenues, that's something we haven't seen in podcasting and audio yet, because people are thinking about either branded, like very wide buys there, or they're thinking about host endorsed for the conversion and, the DTC mindset. So this is really exciting to me because programmatic is going to open a lot of doors. And I think that the truth is, for programmatic to catch on in podcasting, it has to show very quick, fast results with the buyer controlling all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when I frame it up, by the way, I love host-read podcast ads. I think they're great. I think they're an integral part of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
I think that like when I'm talking with performance agencies, right, which tend to be more boutique, the way that I'm talking about it is I'm saying it's the difference between an Instagram influencer posting about your product and an Instagram story, right? And we're just trying to bring kind of that Instagram story-like experience to audio advertising, right? So make it kind of pattern match to the Facebook ads dashboard and give you kind of as many of those options as they have into kind of this part of the ecosystem. And I think
you have to have those options.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that like as podcast or as audio and podcasting continues to grow, you're going to see people do kind of more of these integrated campaigns, right? Where they're doing both. They're getting the authority of the host read and like, the social proof, and they're their audience, but they're getting the reach and extension with a platform like Decibel. And frankly, too, there's a lot of advertisers that, a host read ad just doesn't make sense for, right? Like a local plumber, a local attorney, that sort of thing,
Yeah.
wouldn't need national distribution, right? They're focused very locally. And that's another place that Decibel really helps out, is with those lead gen kind of locally focused brands. So.
Yeah. I mean, radio does really well with local, and I think podcasting has tried local, but a lot of companies that have tried it have not really made it stick. It doesn't become as big and as powerful as they think it does because it's too manual. So a solution like this for local really excites me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really been our goal. So I'm happy to walk you through the platform. We can set up
Yeah.
a campaign together. We were lucky enough that one of our customers agreed to let us use their campaign. So we actually have some actual live data that we can play with. The first thing, like I said, I'll call out is the platform has no minimum spend, right? And it is fully self-serve. That's always been really important to us. As we look at like high level stats with some of these campaigns, you can see that they're pretty indicative of a lot of the kind of performance we see, right? Like typically our CPMs when somebody's running an audience based buy run of network is sitting at about $9 to $12, depending on that audience and depending on how specific they are with like inventory and devices and geography, things like that. And so it tends to be also a more cost economical option for a lot of folks that maybe don't have a large amount of money to spend on like a host read buy, right? They want to be a little bit more concentrated with it. Maybe they're running it for only like a specific event at a specific time, that sort of thing. So looking at your dashboard, you see kind of all of the campaigns. You can click into the campaigns and see individual ads that you set up and like those ads performance. We have a lot of the pretty typical things that you would expect. Listens for us, we define as a 100% completion of the ad. We have clicks with the companion banner, CPM, CPC, CTR spend, impressions, and then your quartile breakdowns, as well as cost per acquisition and conversions.
So it's important to highlight here that this is a full audio self-serve platform. I see in the left-hand corner, we have AM and FM radio, we have digital audio, which is streaming, and also podcasts. So some of these things might not directly apply to podcasts, but they do apply to all other audio channels, and you can take advantage of all of them, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's supposed to be like a one-stop shop for audio buyers, right? Whether it's somebody that has a DTC brand and is just getting into the digital audio side of things, or if you're perhaps a legacy AM/FM radio buyer and you're working on kind of that digital transition, right? Like starting to say, hey, maybe I want to take 10% of my radio budget and put it into podcasting, or 10% of my radio budget and put it into streaming audio, that sort of thing. So that is a great call out. This is just the high level, but I would love to run you through how an actual campaign setup goes.
Let's do it.
So it's a pretty simple 6-step process. If you have an ad ready to go, it can be as fast as 5 minutes to set up. Typically, when a new advertiser signs up, it takes about 24 hours to approve that advertiser, and then subsequent campaigns go live between 2 and 4 hours. So it's a really fast process as well, which is also really important for those performance buyers. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in some of these fields like test campaign.
What's the approval process? You say it takes 24 hours. What happens after they hit submit?
Yeah, and what happens after they hit submit is that we look at the advertiser and basically make sure that it follows our terms and conditions, right? We don't allow things obviously like hate speech or, extreme content of any kinds or violent content, that sort of thing. Once that passes, then we pass it on to our publishing partners, and they have like an approval process as well. So that's why it takes 24 hours to launch the first campaign.
Very cool.
Yeah, so for geographic targeting, this is obviously a really important part for many advertisers. By default, it's the entire United States. However, we have a lot of different logic that we can use in order to target the exact right audience, right? So if we wanted to do something like type in a zip code, right? Like this is an Austin area zip code, we can target that. If we wanted to type in the entire state of California, we can do that. If we wanted to do all of California, but we wanted to exclude Los Angeles, that also is possible with the target and exclude logic. That is kind of from the location standpoint. A very popular option with us as well, though, is a lot of people like to type in radius targets. And so I always joke because this is like, I didn't know this address actually existed, but there is in fact a 123 fake street in the Chicagoland area. And with that, what we can do is utilize lat long targeting for the publishers that support that in order to set a radius and just target down to even just down to 1 mile if you wanted, right? I generally encourage people to at least go 5 to 10 miles just for the purposes of having like sufficient inventory. But entirely possible to do this and just reach the exact right folks. And this is especially valuable for like local small businesses. So,
and is that specific to when lat long is passed, or do you also generalize that for if they're passing IP or other indicators?
Yeah, no, that's a great question because some of the publishing partners don't pass lat long. So what we'll do instead is if somebody does a radius target and that radius target is primarily, X percentage inside of a specific zip code, we'll just move it up to just that zip code. And most of our publishers pass zip code level targeting.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that's the kind of geographic targeting, which is a really important one. As I mentioned, for a lot of advertisers, we have kind of aged and gender targeting in kind of buckets here. And then we have what we call advanced audiences, right? For those of you that are a little bit more savvy in the programmatic space, this is all powered by TrueOptic. They're traditionally a CTV audience provider, but there's actually an incredible amount of crossover between CTV audiences and audio audiences, just because there's similar challenges with targeting. So with that, you can do things like browse a bunch of different categories that we have. But if we wanted to look at something like education and college, like, oh, they're in college or they go to a technical college, they're grad school educated, things like that, you can get really specific with the audiences that you want, as well as we have a search function to look up audiences if you just have like a number of keywords in mind that you're looking for specifically. So if you want like, drives a Ford, right? Primary vehicle make. There you go, right? If you want golfers, we definitely have golf enthusiasts. So lots of different options to reach that exact segment of folks that you're looking to. And again, I'll just reiterate that like the platform is really built for audience-based buys because that's how performance marketers traditionally have done their buys.
Yeah.
And so we really emphasize that folks, put in some audiences that are exactly who they're trying to reach, as well as, do the demographic targeting and the geographic targeting.
And TrueOptic, if I'm not mistaken, also aggregates other data sets, not just their own that they have there. So TrueOptic is really powerful for the people in podcasting not too familiar with the data pipelines. Like TrueOptic has their own, but can connect out to, I believe, Nielsen and other partners out there and get basically anything, which is really a strong point. Like instead of you guys picking one specific solution, you picked a solution that can get you access to anything. So this means if I came to you and wanted to explore more data sets than you have available, it's not necessarily a net new integration.
No, absolutely. And we push we say custom audiences, but we push other third-party audiences on demand as advertisers need them, exactly utilizing that, right? Most of what you're seeing in here is TrueOptic, as well as the Lotomy audiences that they aggregate as well, just because those are really powerful and we've seen better performance out of those versus some of the others.
Yeah, who would have thought prioritizing probabilistic audiences would have paid off so quickly?
Yeah, right. But it does. We do see it on the back end the data that it works very well. Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, frequency targeting, which is pretty standard, right? It's by default 7 times in 1 week. We encourage advertisers to find a good middle ground here. You don't want the same person hearing the ad 200 times in a row, of course. So generally what we're telling people is 7 times in a week or 21 times in a month is like the maximum that we would recommend. Anything beyond that tends to have very diminishing returns for the advertiser and can annoy the end user. So it's something we try and be mindful of.
Can I reduce that to actually 1 time every 1 day? Because I see the drop down there.
Absolutely. You can do one time a day. You could do 21 times a month,
Very
or you
cool.
could do, like 7 times a week, however you want to do it. That's also really important too. And if somebody is going to, I'll get into this in a moment, but if somebody's going to do a sequence of ads, what we'll do is we'll say, by default, you should do one time a day. That way you can stretch out your message as you say multiple messages to the same user over a period of time. So.
Awesome. That's some great targeting and very quick too.
Yeah. Thank you. We really pride ourselves on trying to have the best data available for advertisers to get the best possible outcome. So spend a lot of time on that for sure.
Because you're competing with Facebook. You're competing with the fastest solution for someone to get a campaign live, see how it works, and optimize it. So that's the speed on that is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't get me wrong, we do get plenty of the traditional programmatic DSP buyers that are signing up and they find a lot of value out of it. But yeah, the bulk of our audience is those Facebook advertisers, Google advertisers, that sort of crowd, and really trying to bring this solution to them to open up the number of channels that they have. So going to the next step, we have a ton of different inventory. We connect to most things, right? Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, SoundCloud, Deezer, Ghana, TuneIn, a number of individual podcast and podcast networks. I'll call out like Spreaker, Voxnest, Audio Boom, folks like that. We also have audio out of home, which is a really popular option, especially with digital out of home advertisers, right? What they'll do is they'll run digital out of home in various zip codes, and then they'll target the audio out of home inventory to those zip codes as well. So you can think about that as like audio that runs inside of a bar or a restaurant or a retail space, that sort of thing. We've also gotten some audio, or we've gotten a audio book provider, so like ad supported books, which is interesting. Not a thing that I thought of. In video game is also a hugely growing segment. And then down here, it's not selected by default. You have to opt into it. This is for aggregated, non-transparent inventory that we get from resellers. So we just have that not selected by default. Some advertisers do want that and are okay with that, but it's not a thing that we would serve by default. And especially because it'll affect like the analytics that you'll see on the back end. It'll be a little less specific.
Can I give you a little bit of praise for that? I really love the fact that you left it in as an option and you started with it unchecked. I think that that's really powerful. I think people having the choice to opt into it is fantastic. I think there are some use cases for it, but I think by default, we should only be really buying transparently because especially in this situation, you're trying to optimize and you can't optimize something that you can't break down.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that inventory, like personally, I believe that inventory transparency is paramount. But that said, some advertisers do want that extra reach and that lower CPM and are okay with that. So we do have it, but it is not selected by default. They have to opt into it. And we have a little explainer down here.
That's awesome.
That's the goal. As for platform level targeting, we have Bluetooth speakers, tablets, mobile, desktop, connected TVs. Like playing Spotify through a connected TV is actually like a really common thing and a large part of inventory. And then again, we have like kind of other devices or unknown devices. We also break down by operating system and bandwidth as well. So if you really want somebody that's just connected to Wi-Fi or, versus cellular networks, that's definitely something that we can support too.
Basically with that, this is what I've been talking about and why I find programmatic so attractive, because these targeting types are table stakes in programmatic for all advertising channels. And in podcasting, not every ad server lets you get this granular. So as a buyer, if you decide that you only want to get podcasts that are played on Apple Podcasts when the person is home, it's like mobile, iOS, Wi-Fi, podcasts, and maybe you're not in this situation able to specifically Apple Podcasts, but it's very likely that they're Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatnot. You're guaranteeing that they're in an ideal environment for you to capture the maximum amount of data, Wi-Fi, right? And ideally home Wi-Fi. You're picking the device. You're picking something that has a little bit more, traction to it, and getting away from browsers and other things that you might not find as valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're really about, we don't do it perfectly, but we're always improving, trying to give advertisers the most amount of control and optionality for what they're buying, right? And I think that goes along with the kind of aggregated content, as we call it, being not selected by default, right?
Yeah.
It's all there if people do want it. But yeah, I think that advertisers having control over where their message shows up and who they're reaching is really tantamount, both from a performance perspective as well as just morally from somebody that's been on the buy side for over a decade. I find it to be imperative for any
Yeah.
ad platform. So the next step, this is where it gets kind of fun, right? So we can do lots of interesting things here. But what I would like to call out is, number one, you can upload your ad, of course, right? And we support all sorts of different file types. We have our own proprietary ad server that runs all of our ads, but we also have creation tools in the platform, right? We have human voice actors. We have tons of different human voice actors. And I'll start there. That costs $200 per ad, and that's a flat rate with unlimited revisions. We support 30-second, 15-second, and 60-second spots, though we recommend 30. You just have to drop in your script, and then you could give specific instructions to the voice actor, including things like linking out to like a YouTube video for a difficult pronunciation. As far as the voice actor attributes, we support English and Spanish right now with lots and lots of different specific accents. So, if you're trying to reach somebody in the South, right, and you want a localized accent for your local campaign, that's definitely something that we could support. It also comes mixed with a bunch of different music options that you can select and say, right here, and then you can preview the music options before you send out. This typically turns around in 4 to 8 hours, and then the advertiser approves the voice actor read before they would actually launch their campaign.
And what partner do you work with to execute on this? This is fantastic.
Yeah, that's Voice Bunny that we work with on this, and they've been a really great partner. So we're proud to work with them.
The price and the turnaround is awesome. That's really great for someone who doesn't have an audio asset. I mean, that's the thing, right? I think we put tools like Canva in people's hands, and it's easy now to make visual assets, but audio assets can be a little bit hard. $200 is honestly a steal to make an ad, because the prices I have charged in mobile before at companies I've worked at to make a banner are multiples of that.
Yeah, and we actually cover part of that cost there, right? We wanted to find a middle ground where, the advertiser has skin in the game, as you will, right? And take it seriously. But at the same time, we didn't want it to be prohibitively expensive, especially thinking about like performance brands and like SMBs being the majority of our audience. That said, as well, if price is a concern, we also have AI voices, right? And we work with WellSaid on this, and we utilize their voices. You can write in a script, select one of our 7 voice actors, and then also select some music. And there you go, right?
Yeah.
So you can instantaneously create AI voice ads, and actually over 90% of our users utilize the AI voices just because of the instantaneous kind of feedback, and they can tweak the ad in real time. And according to WellSaid, 94% of people can't tell the difference between their voices and human read voices, or actual human voices. So it's fairly robust. I will go ahead and exit out of this, and what I'm going to do is upload some audio files, and I'm going to do that because I want to show the difference between the way that we can do it, where you can have a single audio ad, which many advertisers do choose, or you can have multiple ads to test and see what the performance difference is between them, whether that's conversions or percentage breakdowns of listens, things like that, what's resonating better with your audience, but then also the sequence ads that I showed, or that I alluded to earlier on. By default, right, what it's going to do is it's going to have them, when you upload multiple ads, it's going to have them play with even weighting, right? But what you can do is you can do something, click this button that says sequence ads, and you can rearrange the order of these ads, right? And so the way to think about this is the user here is ad A, then ad B, then ad C. And that lets advertisers tell a little bit of a longer story and hit like multiple calls to action. And it's a pretty popular option with some advertisers, especially ones that have, kind of multiple facets to their product or service that they want to make sure to highlight, whether it's like a lifetime warranty or the quality or some social proof. and want to be mindful of using the 30 seconds to just focus on one aspect at a time.
I like that a lot. I think that with the frequency capping and the other targeting options you have there can really make sure the same person or the same household at least is hearing the same ads, the sequential ads, and you can space them out over a day. In this situation, again, you could do like 3 per day, and you could make sure ideally that they're all hearing it in the same day. There's a lot of options there.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for clarity, if somebody goes 1, 2, 3, but then kind of is next up to hear like an ad again, it just starts the process over, right? So it goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. If say you had a frequency cap of 9 over a month, something like that. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a powerful option. We do require a 640 by 640 companion banner ad with all of our campaigns. You can drag and drop, upload that, accepts lots of different, JPEGs or PNGs. We encourage advertisers to use like UTM tracking codes to help close the loop. Admittedly, the companion banner ads don't get a lot of clicks typically, right? But clicks are really important to advertisers. So one of the things that we've done is we have what we call our web conversion banners here, right? And how that works is with the VAS tags, we're sending our pixel to create segments that's retargeting that same household for the next 72 hours with companion banner ads that show up across all sorts of different inventory, right? Whether it's in-app or desktop, that sort of thing. And we found that 50 to 100x is the number of clicks that advertisers are seeing and helps them close that attribution gap a little bit more. So it's primarily led with audio, but if you choose this option, we take 20% of the budget and we put it into these companion banner ads as well.
But it's completely optional.
Completely optional. You don't have to use this at all. But many performance advertisers do find value out of this because the audio ad essentially primes them. And then they're able to like actually click through later on when they're remembering it or, just as they're in like the consideration phase of purchasing.
Completely agree. Tons of value there.
Yeah. And then when you have a sequence going on, you can customize the companion banner for each one of the sequences of ads, right? So if the companion banner for ad 1 doesn't make sense for the companion banner for ad 2, you can edit those and sequence them out or change the companion banner for each step of the sequence. So
that's great.
Yep. Next, I'll just jump on to budget. And so with budget here, we have a few different options. Lifetime budgets, which traditional advertisers will be very familiar with, right? You put in an amount, you put in some flight dates, and it runs during those flight dates. It tries to make it as even as possible, but the system will optimize if, say, Saturday is more expensive than Tuesday. It might allocate some more of the budget to Tuesday, depending on what your optimizations that you select are. So in this case, if I wanted to do $5,000 from March 1st to March 31st, there you go. In addition, though, we also have ongoing monthly and daily budgets, which is a thing that performance-based advertisers are really used to with Facebook and Google Ads. They set a monthly budget, and it just spends that over the month roughly evenly. And so that's a very popular option. We actually have had at this point a couple of advertisers that have been running continuous campaigns for about a year and a half, which is really exciting, utilizing this like monthly budget option.
Is it possible to set a daily budget, but also an overall cap?
Not right now. What I would just encourage is just to be mindful of the daily budget.
Yeah.
So, and you can pause. You can pause your campaigns at any time too.
Absolutely.
So if you're running up against that, you can just go into the dashboard and click pause. Also, day parting options, which is pretty table stakes, right? I encourage a lot of folks to take off the midnight until 6 a.m. And then
this
run
is
their
local
ads.
time for the listener.
Always to the listener, not to the advertiser. Yeah, so we only do it to the listener. We also though have popular time ranges, like if you really want just drive time, right? Like a lot of traditional AM/FM advertisers want, we make it easy to just grab that. So. As for bidding strategy, we have manual bids, which are a hard cap. It'll never go over that. The risk of that is if you set the bid too low, it might underdeliver. So we encourage people to use the automatic bidding. The automatic bidding is really interesting. This is something that I'm proud of. And again, with that performance advertiser in mind, it does two things. Number one, if you don't have the pixels installed and we're not receiving conversion events, what will happen is that we'll optimize for lowest possible CPM. If you are receiving conversion events, what'll then happen is once we get a sufficient amount of signal, it'll start optimizing based on all sorts of attributes, whether it's the device type, geolocation, day of the week, time of the day, publisher, all of those sorts of things, as well as the advanced audiences and demographics that we selected earlier, and will attempt to maximize the number of conversions. So that basically switches over time. If you install like the pixel events and we're receiving a sufficient amount of data to do that optimization. And so that's something that performance advertisers really get a lot of value out of because Facebook and Google do that by default, right?
Yeah.
And so we wanted to make audio work in a similar way.
Right now, today, in podcast advertising at least, there's no direct integration with any third parties. There are some solutions out there that have like a first party that are attempting to do similar to what you're doing, but this isn't common yet, right? We have the attribution separate from the ad serving, so there's no optimization because a lot of times campaigns bought like host read and whatnot. It's not that you can manipulate it like that. So this is so cool to see this in both programmatic audio and inherited from performance marketing with things like Facebook. And you must spend a lot of time on that. But you mentioned tracking conversions. How do you track those conversions?
Yeah, so we have pixels pixel tags that we encourage folks to install on their sites, right? So down here, you can create some additional events like sales, leads, traffic. But by default, if I just exit out of the campaign flow quick, you can go down here and we automatically generate site-wide and checkout, right? And you can think of checkout as like a lead or what have you. There's documentation to be able to install this. And then the advanced installation is really for like Google Tag Manager. So we strip out all the extra code so that it's easy to just plug it in and go.
That's fantastic. And when we're running that campaign, am I able to optimize towards like a branded event, like driving to the site versus a conversion?
Yeah, so typically so as of right now, it will optimize towards the lowest funnel conversion, towards checkouts.
Which is smart.
So over time we want to add that level of granularity to be sure. So as of right now, it's still in its infancy. I'm not going to say it's as good as like a Facebook ad, but optimization. But we're working on it. Give us a few more years. So
I think it's fair to say though that Facebook in these situations, right? Like when it first started, it wasn't that good, right? Like the more spend that went through it, the more data that they could see, the more they could optimize it. You're very focused on this. And I think that that's really important because I don't think a lot of people are, right? This performance side is really powerful. DTC is a big part of podcasting, opening up these budgets to these people who are frustrated with Facebook and make it similar enough is awesome. So the more that they're spending in here, the more activity that's having, I'm sure that this is something that gets frequent updates.
Yeah, absolutely. It does. We're pushing updates to everything in here. Well, not everything every week, but we're pushing updates literally every week. We've got a very solid engineering team, and they do incredible work. And we're moving fast and staying lean. You know, I'm glad that you brought up these DTC advertisers, and I know that they've been a big part of HostRed for a long time. But I think that as the traditional publishers, especially like some of the streaming music publishers and things like that, I think they're underestimating exactly how much these folks spend on Facebook ads and Google ads. And these small shops that I think are generally underestimated can be managing quite literally millions or tens of millions of dollars a year for teams of like 5 to 15.
Yeah.
And I think that unlocking that budget, it's not only good for the performance advertisers, which is really, kind of who we built this for, but I think it's good for publishers as well, right? I think it's like a necessary part of the advertising ecosystem to bring in to continue to support better monetization of content.
And I mean, the algorithm that you built here for optimization, it's really cool. And I want to highlight this on the publisher side too, is that if the floor is $6 in this situation, it doesn't mean that everybody's going to only make $6 CPM in podcasting anymore. If your content of the podcast or whatever the audio is converts well, and your tool here sees that and multiple people are using that and targeting overlaps in there, they're going to bid against each other. for who
Yeah.
wants that, right? The prices raise for the inventory that converts well and then performs well when there are multiple and more buying sources in there that identify the value of it. We don't necessarily win by raising the floor and telling everybody, hey, it's $20 to even try it out. We win by thousands of people being active and bidding on that inventory and with a $6 floor, trying to get the cheapest price, but being willing to pay $20, $30, $40 for it because they know that the conversion is so high with the tools they use.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And we've had advertisers get some of their best outcomes with things like $28 CPMs, right? Because the entire way that the system actually works on the back end, not to reveal all the secret sauce, but it's essentially bid modifiers that go up, right? So if I see somebody like a Spotify, right, is outperforming by 2x on conversions over everything else, I'm applying 100% bid modifier onto that Spotify inventory. So it's not, I think that there is a misconception that performance advertising is a race to the bottom. Not at all, right? And actually, it can get better CPM outcomes for advertisers as long as like the audience is correct and it actually converts, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what advertisers care about anyways, is they care about the outcomes. Our advertisers, I should say, most of them care about the outcomes rather than a specific low CPM, right? It's not a race to the bottom with media buyers trying to negotiate deals. It's performance advertisers that are willing to pay really, honestly, whatever CPM, as long as it's getting them the outcomes that they're looking for.
Exactly. I mean, you're trying to hit that cost per conversion that makes sense with what you're spending, and you're willing to pay higher for things that convert well and resonate well with your brand. So
yeah, absolutely.
This has been. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, especially as you think about advertisers with higher AOV products, right? If it's $200 to $500, they're willing to spend quite a bit more to reach that exact right audience and convert them. So it's definitely not a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is it. So at this stage, you look at the review step, make sure that everything is correct. You can go back and edit and then launch your campaign. If you're a new advertiser, there's also a banner up here that will say that you need to complete your advertiser profile and ask if you're an agency or a brand, what category you're in, things like that, and your website URL, your main one, so that we can do that review process as well as review the ad content for acceptability in terms of conditions. So
awesome. And then when the campaign's live, what's the reporting look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just submit the campaign just for us to look at here. There we go. So switching over to the analytics suite, we actually utilize Looker for this. So there's lots of different breakdowns that you can do, as well as you can export this to CSV. We have webhooks, so it can pretty much go anywhere that you need it to go. But this is what it looks like, right? We have breakdowns by pretty much every relevant category, whether it's your advanced audiences, your campaigns, by conversions, by the creative name. So if you're running like multiple ads inside of a single campaign and you want to see which one's doing the best by conversions, totally possible. The geo, metro, area, region, zip code, platform, device, make, model, type, OS, podcast show names. That's not always relevant with all of our publishers, but for the podcast inventory that passes that, we definitely utilize that as well. Time breakdowns by date, month, quarter, and then all of the metrics that we saw in the dashboard. So this is an example of, if you wanted to look at the name of your campaign, the date, and then the publisher, this advertiser's over-indexing with, this particular publisher. But then, we could see all the different stats based on the date, based on the campaign.
That's great.
Yeah, we definitely want to be as transparent with the analytics as possible, which kind of goes along with, the whole aggregated inventory being not selected by default. So transparency is our goal.
That's what performance is. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that they can understand, what kind of audience is over-indexing, what publishers are over-indexing, things like that, so they can better craft their campaigns moving forward to reach their goals.
100%. This is really fantastic. I'm excited by this because the goal going forward for podcasting has to be to grow the number of advertisers in the space. And you made a really interesting point. The people that are doing performance marketing fly under the radar. They're not the major agencies out there. They're not the major holding companies or anything like that. They're the people that have figured out how to use these tools to take $1 million and turn it into $3 million. And so when that brand is working with them, they just keep pumping more money in there. And Facebook and all the other companies out there that are struggling with Apple's changes and the general privacy and cookie and mobile device ID changes, they're looking for another avenue. And podcasting and audio hasn't had a lot of that data and has been successful for conversions, for direct to consumer marketing. So this is a tool that really emphasizes that and says to these people, hey, I built it just like you're used to. I made it so that you don't have to learn us. You can just keep doing what you're doing and we'll make it work in audio.
Yep, that's exactly been the goal from day one, right? Is to make it as close to the experience of how they buy right now and bring that to audio and translate that over. And I think that this will hopefully unlock, you just have to look at Facebook's market cap to understand exactly how much a lot of folks are spending on that platform, and the bulk of those advertisers being these performance brands, right? And I think that, audio is a really powerful tool. I love audio. I believe in it deeply. I've staked my career on it in many ways, right? And so I think that, but for audio to thrive, I think it has to be inclusive of lots of different kinds of advertisers. And I think that, if we're successful with what we're doing, and we have been so far, and we're going to keep working, is really to bring in this segment of advertisers that I think could be really powerful for monetization for the publishers, as well as advertisers getting outcome and expand audio as a channel.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on today to talk about this. If you are a publisher and you'd like to get your inventory made available in the Decibel dashboard, you can reach out to Jeremy and the Decibel team. We'll share that information at the end. And if you're an advertiser or buyer, or brand, anybody looking to spend in any way and to try out performance marketing and audio, definitely check out Decibel. Reach out for a direct walkthrough, because I bet you they'll be able to get you live very quickly and you'll be able to see the results right away.
Yeah. That's always the goal. Thank you, Bryan. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks.